Greetings to you. I want to quickly share with you a message that we shared yesterday at church, and which I believe is going to be of blessing to you. The issue that we were sharing about, it is what is found in James 5, verse 16 to 17, which I want to briefly just read for you. In James 5, verse 16 to 17, it says that confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The effective fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. So if you read that verse, it says that you will be healed when somebody prays for you. And then it tells you why is it that you are going to be healed. It says the reason you are going to be healed is because the effective fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. Now, what is important here in this scripture that I want us to look at is that the first thing, just to sidetrack a bit, the first thing that we see here, it says that some people are probably sick because they have got unconfessed sins. And if you have got unconfessed sin, like David has said, you will find that you attract sicknesses to your body. The body cannot deal with a guilty conscience. So if you've got a conscience that is condemning you, a conscience that tells you that you've got something wrong, you need to confess it. Otherwise, you'll find that you are dealing with sicknesses that you could have avoided. So in this verse, it then says that if you've got a sin, if you are sick, go and confess your sin to somebody else and get somebody to pray with you so that you can be healed. But then it then says the reason why this prayer is able to produce results, the reason why a person that you are asking to pray for can produce results is because it is the prayer of a righteous person. So what we see there is that don't just ask anyone to pray for you. And we see here that this agrees with what Paul said, that you must be careful as to who lays hands on you, and you also must be careful as to who you lay your hands on. So don't just ask anybody to lay hands on you, because people who are not in the will of God, people who are not Christians, can actually transfer their spirits over to you. So be very careful. So, but the verse here then says that the prayer of a righteous man, this is the person that you have come, who has come to pray for you, you have asked to pray, that they pray with you. It says it will avail much. So that is the one thing that we see. Prayer avails much. Another version then says that prayer makes much power available, and it therefore tells us that most of the times we may find that we are powerless simply because we don't pray. So if we want to have power, then we need to pray, for prayer avails much. But one of the things that we see with this verse is that it's actually very surprising that while we know that prayer produces results, very few of us are praying. And this is why you will see that in James, I think it's James chapter 4 verse 2. James chapter 4 verse 2 says that you lust and do not have, you murder and covet and cannot obtain, you fight and war, yet you do not have because you do not ask. So this is actually very surprising that whilst God has given us all these promises of wonderful things in His word that are meant for His children, very few of us are asking. So probably the reason why you don't have what you need is because you don't ask. So it's telling us that people don't pray. But getting back to our scripture, it then says that it's not just any prayer that produces results. If we go back to that verse again, James chapter 5, verse 16, it says the effective fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. And it then goes, so you can see that it's not just any prayer. It's effective and fervent prayer. We'll come back to this just now. But if you read verse 17, which then gives an example of this prayer that avails much. Verse 17 says, Elijah was a man with a nature like ours. In other versions, it says he was a man like us. Others say he has same passions, which means the same challenges and problems and temptations that we have, he had. And it says, while he was a man like us, he prayed earnestly. So he didn't just pray. It says he prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain on the land for 3 years and 6 months. So in response to his prayer, rain did not fall. So it's saying, this verse here, that the same way that Elijah could do this, we are also able to do it. But it's not just a matter of saying a prayer. There is a difference between saying a prayer and actually praying. Saying a prayer is like what we used to do in primary school or even in school, where we were made to say the Lord's Prayer. Now, if you say the Lord's Prayer, you are not praying, because most of us did not even understand what we were saying. It requires that you need to pray. Now, it says Elijah did not just say a prayer. He prayed fervently or earnestly. Now, when I look up the word fervently or earnestly, what it actually means, which is what I want to come to now. It says that this comes from the Greek word energio or ernegio. Ernegio is the word that gives us or from which we get the word energy, which means to energize. So which means that the prayer that Elijah prayed, and the prayer that it says is the prayer of a righteous person which avails much. It's not just prayer, but it is prayer that is energized. And I want to come to this thing a bit later on. But for now, let us stop here and just indicate that it is required of us that we need to pray. If you are a righteous person, just know that God hears your prayer, and as you pray, He will answer. And in the next clip, I'm going to take this in further, where we are going to look at this. What exactly does it mean by a fervent or earnest prayer of a righteous person? God bless you.